Let's go straight into Bitcoin. We're gonna talk about the price point where I think we're gonna bottom out and also when I think we're gonna bottom out. So first of all, let's look at when I think we're gonna bottom out. That's I think most important here firstly. So because we don't really know the exact price, but we can predict around about when we are gonna bottom out. So looking here, we can see the last 4 cycles. Okay, this is the current cycle that we are having here in orange. And we can see that most of the time we always bottom out in Q4. So we always find a top Q4 post-halving year. This first of all shows that we have cycles, and you can see there's a pattern coming, and most of the time we bottom out right around here, right around October, September, beginning of November or end of October. So I think we're gonna bottom out around about at that price point, and we can see we are just a few months out from there. Most of the time we've been bottoming out around about November, beginning of November. And if we assume that, then we can assume that we're gonna continue to go down as the bottom is not yet in. If we look at Bitcoin's price here, let's look at the Bitcoin's price, okay? And firstly, let's look at the monthly, and I'm gonna give you the 54 simple moving average on the monthly. And if we look at the 54 simple, then we can see, this is this line, that there's kind of a pattern. It kind of acts as the last support before we go up. Here, for example, in this halving, it acted as support. Here it was, we supported just below, above that. Here you can see that we went just below that. And here you can see that we are very close to the 54 simple moving average line, which is around about 56,000. Now, I do think we're gonna continue to go down. As I also said, we're gonna probably bottom out in about October, November of this year, assuming we're gonna go a bit lower than this. And I think we might actually go a bit lower than the 54 simple. I think we can go to around about this price range. You can see here at this level, we've been bottoming out, which is also kind of acting as resistance for this price. So if we draw the line here, I think that's a good price where we could be bottoming out. So approximately $50,000 or the high 40,000s is, I think, where we are going to be finding a bottom. And call me out on this. I want to really see what's going to happen in a few months, come October, come November. My prediction is that we're going to probably find a bottom maybe between $46,000 to $50,000 before we continue to go up. Now, why do I also think that? Well, we can look at this chart here. So Bitcoin last cycle's bottom happened always around 20% below the 200 weekly moving average. You can see here, once we go below the 200 weekly moving average, which is this orange line, it's about 20% lower than that we find a bottom. Here also 20% lower than that. Currently, the 200 weekly moving average is at around $58,000. If we go 20% below that, this will bring us to pretty much, this is $58,000. If we go 20% below that, this will bring us to around $45,000, $46,000, where I think we could find a bottom. Like I said, $46,000 to $50,000 is where I think we're gonna find a bottom. Another thing to note is that if we look at the RSI actually, and we're gonna look at the RSI, which is the relative strength index, but not on the weekly. Actually, let me show you the weekly first. If we look at the weekly, we can see that we are really finding a bottom right here, and we are very oversold. So the RSI is showing us how overbought or oversold we are. You can see on the weekly, we are in the oversold region. But if I also go on to the monthly, which is a bit more, obviously gonna give us a bit more data, we can also see that we are in the lower regions right here, but we could potentially go a bit lower. We know that the RSI usually stays in the low region for some time. So just because we just went down doesn't mean we cannot continue to go down. For example, here, let me show it on the weekly. Here we go. For example, I will look at the last cycles, okay? Here we found a bottom. The RSI is at the bottom right here. We bottomed out, and at pretty much the exact same price, we actually bottomed out. The same time point we bottomed out for Bitcoin. But look at last cycle. The RSI bottomed here and Bitcoin was at this price point here. But then it took another few months. We went a bit more down and that's where we bottomed out. It was just a bit lower. And I think we're going to have the same thing happening now. Look, we are at the same price point. The RSI is at the bottom, but I think we can just continue to go slightly downwards and sideways. That's what I think will happen. And if we look at this chart here, which is basically telling us what people think in the market, are they in euphoria, are they panicking? And usually we always follow this cycle. There's thrill, then there's euphoria, everyone thinks they're going to be rich and making money. Then we start going down. People don't believe it yet. People have anxiety, they deny it. Then they panic, then they capitulate and sell, then they get angry, and then eventually the price goes up again. So this is just the emotions that traders usually go through. And if we look at this pattern, we basically see that we are at the bottom, and I think we're gonna just go sideways and slowly drain out, have the last few people sell their Bitcoins as they, again, deny, as they capitulate, as they give up on Bitcoin, and then it's going to be the same as every single cycle. We're going to start picking up again. People will not start buying. They will think we're going to continue to go down, and then eventually, as we are already halfway through the next bull market and halfway to the next all-time high, then they're going to buy at the very end and of course lose money as they always do. So the best thing to do is to now DCA, dollar cost average, buy over the next few months until around, like I said, October, November. I will start buying now, start buying every $2,000, $3,000, $5,000 until we reach around 50,000. In my opinion, that's a good thing to do. Don't wait until we get there, but buy as we go down. Another thing we can talk about is that I've seen a strong correlation between Bitcoin and US software stocks. It's just something I wanted to show. So obviously Bitcoin is not following gold exactly. It's not a store of value, but it's more like a speculative asset like US software stocks. And another thing we can talk about is Ethereum. So Ethereum has strong support right here, right about $1,800. If I zoom out a bit, we can see that there's a strong support line. This is the line, and we've been supported here once, twice, and now a third time. And I think Ethereum is a good buy at the moment. Give it also some time because it follows Bitcoin. As Bitcoin goes down, Ethereum will go down, but definitely a good time to buy as we hit these critical support levels. If you want, wait a bit longer until we reach about 1.8K. And looking at the liquidations, which is a magnet for the price, this means at these price points, traders who have leveraged positions get liquidated. So these are people who are shorting Bitcoin. If the price goes up, they get liquidated, of course. And we can see that most of these liquidations are around about $2,200 to $2,400 right here. And this means that most likely we're gonna go towards that price point. So to summarize the video, don't expect Bitcoin to go up much anytime soon. We might fill the CME gap, which we know we have around about at $84,000. I can show you guys right here. We know that these CME gaps tend to be filled. They're formed over the weekend, but this is more of a short-term play. So if I go here, for example, on the 4 hourly and remove the RSI, we can see we have a CME gap here at all the way to 84,000, starting from 78,000. And then there's another one at 93, which has been open for a while now. And keep in mind, they don't always fill immediately. Eventually they get filled, but some CME gaps, especially the small ones, and if you're already too far away, they might not get filled until we then again continue to go up in a few months. So what could happen is we fill this gap. I think it should be filled most likely if we have another pump, but expect over the next few months that we continue to go down until October, November, and then eventually find a bottom and continue to go up. So that's it. See you next time. Bye.